Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney and happy Friday. Today I've got two dresses here that I want to show you that I've made for Jenny, and we're going to talk about wearable muslins and all sorts of things. But before we get into that, today is Friday, which means we have a Love Notions Feature Friday pattern, and that pattern is the Sonata dress. I've not made this one yet, but it's been on my list to make forever. I think I want to do something in maybe a cotton or something with maybe a linen, something with a little bit more structure. And I kind of want to find something in my stash that I have a little bit less yardage of, because this probably, I'm assuming this doesn't need a ton because it's above the knee dress. It's a more fitted style. Not fitted, but more of a chic style. Usually you don't need as much fabric. So I just really need to go looking through my fabric and see what I've got. But it is $5 today only. With the code 10TOMCAT, you can get an additional 10% off that sale price. So if this is one you've also been eyeing, now is a great time to grab that. All right, let's talk about Jenny's dresses. So I've got two dresses here, same pattern. This is the Seamwork tailor dress that she picked out. Same pattern, two different fabrics, obviously. And then we've got a version 1, which was her wearable muslin, and then a version 2, which is her final dress. Also, these mannequins are really more stuffed to fit my body, not Jenny's. So these aren't quite as va-va-voom on Jenny. These fit her, you'll see here in a minute, they fit her very nicely, but excuse the mannequins. We're doing the best we can here, folks. Doing the best we can. All right, so yes, the Seamwork tailor is one that Jenny did pick out. And if you're interested, so Seamwork has a club where you get credits, actually. Instead of getting a pattern each month, or actually it's 2, you get 2 credits each month. And what that means is that you can use those credits to buy any of the patterns that are in there, or buy any of the patterns that are in their catalog. So if you're not crazy about this month's patterns, you can go back and use this month's credits for past patterns, which includes the Colette line as well. Their old Colette line as well. Anyway, I have a 50% off your membership code or link right down below. So if that's something you're interested in, I do have a link down below that you can click for that. Also, if you just like this pattern and just want this pattern, I have it linked down below too. You can do that as well. You can buy the patterns as is. You don't have to be a member of the club to buy the patterns. Okay, but the club comes with tons of really cool stuff. So anyway, check the links if you're interested. Okay. So Jenny got invited to a Kentucky Derby event. So we are in Indiana, and we are not that far from Louisville. And she's got friends down there, and they've gone not to the actual Kentucky Derby, but usually the opening weekend of it for parties and all that kind of stuff. And she wanted a new dress to wear. And while we were in Washington at the Sewing Expo, we came across this beautiful silk charmeuse, and she fell in love with it. We actually found 2, one that I fell in love with and one that she fell in love with. So we grabbed 4 yards of it, and with the thoughts that we'll figure out what we're going to do with it. Then once we got back, she's like, I know what I want. I want a wrap dress in that silk for the Derby. So, okay, great. Obviously, not so much that this is a precious fabric. I mean, it is a silk charmeuse. It is absolutely beautiful, but we can't buy any more of it because it was a vendor that was there at the market. It would just so happen she had leftover fabric. So it's not something that I can go out and buy more of. Unfortunately, I don't have a link for you. Sorry about that. But yeah, mostly it was precious because we just couldn't get any more of it. She absolutely loved the colors, as do I. And so we wanted to do a wearable muslin before I cut into the good stuff. Now, I get asked a ton on, when I'm making muslins or toiles, however you want to say, basically a practice garment. Very, very rarely do I make a traditional muslin or toile, which would be a mock-up of the pattern, sometimes even just half the pattern. People do, but in a non-usable fabric. So just like a plain cotton or something that you wouldn't, be wearing out of the house. It's more just to assess fit. I very rarely do that. And I've got a whole pattern fitting course. We're in the middle of it right now, but I'll be offering it again in the fall if you're interested. But I prefer, it's a lot of work to do that. And I have learned the quirks of my body and those that I sew for quite a bit. which is all part of the fitting process, on things that most likely we need to do on them versus, things that maybe, that you may not want to do on a first iteration. So for Jenni, the case with this is usually she has a very long torso. So usually for Jenni, we have to grade. So a lot of times we grade from a smaller size on top to a one size up for waist and bottoms. And like I said, she's got a really long torso. So it's very common that we have to lengthen the bodice by 1 inch and a lot of times the sleeves by 1 inch. Now, Seamwork patterns draft for a 5'8" height. And then when you get into their curvy range, it's a 5'9" height. Which is way taller than me. There's some that we don't have to do on Seamwork patterns for her that we may have to do on another pattern line. I have made Seamwork patterns for her in the past, and the most recent one was, it was a jumpsuit that I made for her. It was a Distachify make in a Tinsel Twill, really pretty. But we went ahead and we lengthened it was a jumpsuit, so we definitely wanted to lengthen the waist so that we weren't cutting anything off. And it was a short sleeve, so we didn't need to mess with the sleeves. After we got that made up, we realized that we had more than enough length in the bodice. In fact, we probably didn't need to add that inch at all, period. And I kind of attributed that to most likely it's because she just fits the block really well and they draft for a longer torso. However, after making this dress, I think it was probably more of a case that there was extra length in the bodice of that because it was a jumpsuit, and that is probably why we could have gotten away with not adding any for that particular pattern. But anyway, we decided for this one we were just going to make it as is. So I made for her a size 10 and at the top, and then we graded out to a 12 at the waist and hip. So I graded to the 12 at the waist and then just did the size 12 for the hips and the bottom of the skirt. This fits really great. You'll see it here in a second. Everything about this is really lovely on her, but the waistline does come about 1 inch above her natural waistline. So this is by far a very wearable muslin. If she ever goes out to shop for ready to wear, most wrap dresses and shirt dresses come above her natural waist because she has a long torso. So this is, while it's not ideal, this is something she's used to. And this is also something that I want to reiterate, that when we are sewing for ourselves, number one, perfection doesn't exist, right? We're trying to make something better for us than we can buy in the store, or even maybe that's not even the reason we sew. Maybe we just sew for the creative outlet. Whatever it is, that's absolutely fine. But let's remember and not try and hold ourselves up to the standard of perfection. There's no such thing as perfect fit. There's a thing as really good fit. And sometimes, we make concessions. We absolutely make concessions when we are shopping in a store. So that can be the case with sewing. And sometimes it's worth it to make a garment that is wearable, absolutely wearable, and then make the adjustments that we need to make a garment that fits us really well in the second time out. So just some things to kind of think about when you are sewing for yourself, trying a new pattern company, those kind of things. So I did no alterations to this other than grading between sizes, and it fit her pretty well, other than the waistline being a little too high. And this includes the sleeves. A lot of times she has to lengthen sleeves by 1 inch. We were able to leave this as is. Conversely, when I'm making Seamwork patterns for myself, I have to shorten them by quite a bit. But it's a longer sleeve, but that's okay. That's why we sew. They're all very easy alterations that need to be made. Very pleased with this fit. And we're also going to talk about the differences in fabric and how that played out. This fabric is a gorgeous linen that I got from Sew Haley Jane, from my Sew Haley Jane box. Gosh, I think it was back at the end of the summer, last summer, or fall, beginning of fall. I tell you, I've been having so much fun sewing with my Sew Haley Jane fabrics, and there's always, not always, but there's a lot of times a new to me pattern company that's in the box. She's got a supplementary fabric that's in there that's always a lot of fun to use, and then there's just like little notions in there, and her magazine that she puts in there is just really well done. There's always matching thread, which we'll talk about that here in a second too. So when this one arrived, I knew that it probably wasn't going to be a color that I wanted to wear on myself, because my blue is really more of like the cobalt blue. But I thought, oh my gosh, this is the perfect blue for either my daughter or Jenni. And then Jenni was over and she was like, I love that fabric. So I'm like, great, this is going to be something for you. There was 3.5 meters of this fabric, and I cut it out with my projector. really fun. Cut it out with my projector. And again, because I wasn't making any alterations other than grading from a 10 to a 12 at the waist. And I just had enough fabric to cut this out of that 3.5 meters, which was making me a little nervous for this one because I only had 4 yards of this and it was more narrow. However, with this pattern, it really was more of a length issue, not so much width, which was, I mean, we were sweating it a little bit, but it all turned out well and good here in the end. But anyway, made this one, decided what we needed to do for this one, and then went ahead and made my alterations digitally. Again, I will have a video on that at some point here soon, where I just lengthened the bodice pieces. So I lengthened, there's 4 bodice pieces because there is a princess seam that is here in the front and also in the back. There's princess seams in the back. And so I lengthened all 4 of those pieces, and then also the neck, the facing. They're the front facing. You want to make sure and lengthen those facings if you have in fact lengthened your front. Now we were a little worried about, again, mostly the length of the skirts because there is, let's see, 4 pattern pieces for the skirt. One gets cut on the fold, center back gets cut on the fold. So that comes out to 7 total panels that go around the skirt. And they all kind of get a circle skirt there at the bottom. So we made the decision, okay, we're going to need to shorten this skirt a little bit in order to be able to fit it onto the 4 yards of narrower fabric. And it was a directional print just to add even more fun and, yeah, excitement to it. I don't know. So anyway, I ended up taking 2 inches off the bottom of the hem. And another thing that really saved me, the pattern actually calls for, I think it's 1.25 inches, or maybe it's just 1 inch. I think it's 1.25 inches hem at the bottom, but this is a circle hem. It's not quite so exaggerated because of the panels. When you've got a paneled skirt, you don't have quite as big of like a bias portion. And I serged my edge and then just folded it up, and that serger kind of pulled it in a little bit, which makes hemming on a circle skirt that way much easier. So I thought, well, if I make a much less hem allowance and we'll just do a baby hem on it, and then we'll just shorten it 1 inch. I think it'll come out the same because we're lengthening the bodice 1 inch. But lengthening the bodice 1 inch is okay because, when you get the flare, when you take it up 2 inches, it makes it narrower because I went up 2 inches from the bottom. Anyway, it all worked. It all worked really, really well. So I did do a baby hem. This entire dress is completely French seamed on the inside. It took so long to make this dress because, like I said, there's a lot of skirt panels. There's 4 panels on the top, but they are all French seamed, all nice and beautifully. I did the little baby hem at the bottom with the band roll. So I did that band roll that I did on my bias slip skirt. Worked perfectly. We've got nice elasticated sleeves here, and then there is gathering that is here at the top of the sleeve cap for this pattern, and it turned out really, really beautifully. I do finish the pattern off a little differently. Instead of leaving an opening in the side seam because I wanted to French seam everything, I did the same thing on this one. I prefer just to do a big buttonhole in the actual garment that I cut open, and that's the hole to pass my tie through instead of leaving the seam allowance open. I just feel like that makes it a little bit weaker there, and I don't want that. So on all of my wrap dresses that are true wraps that actually you have to pass a tie through the waist, I always do a buttonhole there. So I did that on both of these, which is different from the pattern. And it just turned out really, really beautifully. And I think we were able to save the length of the dress by getting creative. Yeah, and it feels like heaven. It feels like heaven. So she's very excited. She's bought a fascinator to wear kind of this fuchsia pink to wear to the event. And I will be posting pictures. Actually, as you're watching this, the event has already happened. So yeah, I'll check Instagram because this will be edited before the event. So check Instagram and we'll actually pop pictures of her all dressed up for the event there at the racetrack. So all very, very fun and exciting. So those are the 2 dresses. You will notice that, let's talk about the differences in fabrics. This dress and the model on the website, also she's got one that's made up in probably a linen, and then another one that's made up in like a viscose, so something with a lot more drape. And I find it fascinating because you can get 2 somewhat different looking garments out of the same pattern. So this one by far has a lot more structure. You have a more pronounced sleeve, like a little bit more statement sleeve. The skirt stands away a little bit more from the body. It just feels a little bit more tailored. Whereas this one is just all drape, it's all drape, almost like liquid. The gathering at the sleeve cap is not as noticeable because the fabric is so drapey. The skirt's a little swishier and it doesn't stand out quite as much. And it's so light. This dress, it feels like you've got nothing on, where this one feels like you've got a dress on. So anyway, it is really fun to look at the differences that just the fabric substrate can make on your finished project. What else do I want to say about this dress? I'm just really pleased with it. Jenni is really pleased with it. This watercolor silk is beautiful. I'm very pleased that I bought something in February and actually got it made up now. Feeling really good about myself there. Not done my silk yet. And honestly, I need a break from silk for a little bit. This was a lot of French seams, and this silk also frayed the minute that you looked at it funny. So doing the French seams and trying to get in fact, there is every now and again a little bit of fray. And I tell you, I trimmed those French seams down to a scant 1/8 of an inch. And even still, they were fraying and came out when I did my 1/4 inch seam, the second pass. But I just need, it's beautiful fabric, but I just need a break from silk. So mine probably won't get made up for a little bit. I'm all about the linen. And we are entering that time of year. So expect to see a lot more cotton and linen here for a little bit, just so I could, get some easier sews under my belt. And on that note, while I French seamed everything here, this one, I sewed my seams and just serged to finish off those seams. So yeah, this one was much faster to make than this one. But in the end, we ended up with 2 wonderful fitting dresses, a really good fit, or a good fit, and then a really good fit. Again, we're not going for perfection here, just going for really good. All right, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this video and talking a little bit more about wearable muslins, test garments, kind of how I like to do things. And it really all comes down to practice, practice, practice. And once you have figured out some of your body or the people you sew for's bodies and kind of common alterations you need to make, it does make getting away with doing just wearable muslins much easier. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We've got Mother's Day here in the US this weekend, which is exciting. I don't live near my mom, so it's kind of a day for my kids to pamper me. So I'm going to take that. But yeah, I'll give my mom a ring. But yes, that is what we've got this weekend. So absolutely there's going to be some sewing happening this weekend because that is my prerogative as a mother on Mother's Day. I hope you guys get some sewing in this weekend as well. And I will see you guys again on Tuesday. Have a good weekend. Bye.